I just want to show this video. By the way, I'm here with Dr. Pierre Kory. He's the author of The War on Ivermectin, the medicine that saved millions and could have ended the pandemic. There's a foreword by Del Bigtree. He wrote it with Jenna McCarthy. I can't wait to read it myself. So I want to show you this last video. I tweeted this video out, I think, 2 days ago with the headline, "Hey, is there anybody who can watch this and not get enraged?" So I just want to play this, and you tell me. My whole question is, when are people going to get angry? When are people going to start pushing back? They're still angry at RFK Jr. They're still angry at me. They're still angry at people like you, Dr. Kory. When are they going to get angry? There's no video of me lying and contradicting myself like this. There's no video of you lying and contradicting yourself like this, or our Bobby Kennedy, but there is video after video of this guy doing this.
Or first they're going to vaccinate you, then they're going to take your guns and Bibles away. And as ridiculous as that sounds to us, a quarter of the nation believed it and needlessly lost their lives. It is just a massive loss of life, all for showing allegiance to far-right extremism. I think the current record for developing a vaccine from start to licensure in the United States is around 3 or 4 years.
Usually a 10 to 25 year time frame. People forget how long it really takes to develop an effective and safe vaccine and do all the adequate clinical testing.
Look at the timelines of coronavirus this COVID-19 vaccines. It really follows the same progression as almost any other vaccine. And the vaccine development cycle for COVID-19 vaccines very much goes along with what we've seen before.
Remember, the reason why these protests are happening in the first place is to protest structural racism. COVID-19 is decimating African American communities, and that is actually, in my opinion, actually a component of the protests.
I think it's important our public health leaders speak out on this as well. We simply cannot be holding rallies. Hard to imagine a scenario where you would have any meaningful data in order to release a vaccine, certainly not under a license, but even under this emergency use authorization, which I don't even know what that means.
A new name now, Brian. It's the OG villain. I'm the original gangster villain.
Call me the original gangster villain, the OG villain. Call me the OG villain, the original gangster villain. I still remember the time when a school teacher died when I was a kid in the school. I mean, that was very traumatic, and that will happen over and over again.
So you're saying we don't need to open schools up at all at this point?
That's right.
Yeah, but first of all, I think it's really important not to diminish the accomplishments of the Biden administration. Clearly, having a new administration that is at least honest with the American people.
You're okay. You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations.
I know an anti-science disinformation campaign when I see it, and I could smell this one a mile away. 92% reduction in asymptomatic transmission, so it's preventing people from shedding virus from their nose and mouth.
These vaccines will stop asymptomatic transmission.
This anti-science element that began out of the Republican Tea Party, expanded across the Republican Party, now globalizing, is a threat, and it's a killer. Is when we look at groups that are going to refuse vaccines, it's pretty high among the African American population because they don't trust what's been going on. They all point to the same thing.
So to me, that's the biggest contradiction. So I was always saying that. So during COVID, when they were demonizing people who were vaccine hesitant, I would point out that it's the majority of the African American population in New York City that is vaccine hesitant, when they kept saying it was right wingers, it was Trumpers, it came out of the Tea Party. And there's a video of him saying both those things. He said it's all right-wing Trumper coming up, and then it's like, well, it's actually the African-American community. So, again, you don't need a doctorate to know when a guy is lying when he says two totally different things for political purposes. So let me play a little bit more. Do you want to say something, Doctor? Go ahead.
I did. Maybe keep going, because it's a devastating montage. I mean, you're really busting him. He's lying. He's lying repeatedly under different administrations, saying different things. I mean, he's a political actor, and he calls out disinformation. That guy is literally a paid disinformationist.
Paid propagandist is what he is. Yep. Here we go.
It's white Republicans. And I don't know how to more elegantly say it. We have to revisit what the anti-vaccine movement has become, which is really an anti-science empire. They're using this as a way to consolidate power by showing that they're stronger than the scientists. Far-right element of the Republican Party has launched a war of aggression against vaccines, vaccine scientists, and other scientists. One of the things the political right does is always point out that the death rate from COVID-19 among adolescents is relatively low, and that's true. Deliberately put upon us by the far-right element of the Republican Party. They engineered, I don't think they realized it, but they basically engineered the return of COVID-19 to the southern United States. That the Russian government is piling on anti-vaccine content as a wedge issue to divide our country, and we need help from Homeland Security, we need help from the Commerce Department, from the Justice Department, and the State Department to do something about the weaponized health communication that's coming out of Russia. He's now, if you have any criticism of the COVID policy or that vaccine, you are now a white supremacist, you are out of the Tea Party, you're a Trumper, you're dangerous, and you're Russian. You're a Russian. You're working for the Russians to divide our country, when if there was ever a clear case of Jungian projection, that's what this guy's doing. Everything he's claiming his critics are doing are the things that he's doing. He's politicizing medicine. He's propagandizing you. He's lying to you. He's making statements he has no facts for, and he's demonizing anybody who criticizes him. And he's dividing the country on purpose so he can consolidate power during COVID. That's exactly what he's doing. He's had his eye on Fauci's job the whole time. We already did a whole segment about it, and here he is. Okay, so we'll go a little bit more. Take down the anti-vaccine, anti-science empire. This is going to be pervasive. And the security of the country depends on getting everybody vaccinated. This is not your father's COVID, your mother's COVID. Obsession with mandates. And I say, look, right now, no one's talking about mandates. We can mandate that all of the eligible adolescents over the age of 12 get vaccinated if they want to go to school. This is like something before the Industrial Revolution, when we had child labor. Every kid over the age of 12 needs to be vaccinated if they're going to attend schools. Florida and Louisiana are vying with Botswana for the world's highest rate of COVID-19. So what this is nothing more than a badge of tribal allegiance to say that you're in the ivermectin club. From day one, this was going to be a 3-dose vaccine. And I would imagine if the president were in meetings back in 2020, he might have realized that people tie their allegiance to not getting vaccinated to the Republican Party, to the GOP, on what I call the three-headed monster, which is the political aggression from the far right, number one. Number two, the disinformation dozen identified by the Center for Countering Digital Hate. Those are non-governmental groups. And the third, which surprises some, is the Russian government. We're going to need the Department of Homeland Security, the Justice Department, the Commerce Department, even the State Department, and he's got to create this interagency task force. And now you're starting to see this move up into Canada as well. So we've been exporting this kind of anti-science aggression up from the far right. And all I'll say is, imagine if this were Roberto Clemente or Walter Payton or Henry Aaron. Would they talk this way? They wouldn't. They'd be out there saving lives. Anti-science is now a leading cause of death in the United States. To get long COVID and have gray matter brain degeneration and cognitive decline. So I think we need to vaccinate against that as well. I call it death by anti-science aggression, and this has now become one of the leading killers in the United States, far more than global terrorism or nuclear proliferation or cyber attacks. Absolute bizarre mass form of self-immolation. And we have literally millions of individuals waiting to get attacked by COVID-19 who remain defiant of vaccines. We've still got 40% of those populations unvaccinated, and those are the ones who are going to get hospitalized and lose their lives. Anti-science is one of the leading killers of young and middle-aged adults in the United States. Or if you start lifting mask mandates now, you're basically condemning all of the kids to get infected with Omicron. Joe Rogan has a lot of influence, and influences a lot of people who we specifically need to reach. So you think you'd go on Joe Rogan and make your case for vaccines? But that was put together by that guy. Nice job. Very well done.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jimmy, if he went on Joe and you played that whole montage that you just played, I mean, Hotez would be in a lot of difficulty right there.
A lot of trouble. Yeah, it's all you have to do is play that and go, which side are you on? Which Hotez should we believe?
Right. And the other thing is, I mean, the other thing that I interpret from seeing him say all those things and, demonizing and vilifying people who have different opinions and different interpretations of the data, that is really important for him and the people who pay him to do it right now, Jimmy, because that vaccine hesitancy that you talked about, it has grown. It has exposed the fraud around the science. And now people are starting to question the childhood vaccines, which they should. I never questioned them before. I never had any reason to question them. And I've now become much more deeply studied on the data supporting childhood vaccines. And that's what they're really scared of. Not that it's going to cause a public health crisis, that they won't be able to vaccinate everything that moves with this crazy schedule that we have in the United States, where they keep adding vaccines to the schedule. And you probably know these issues, but we're getting drowning in chronic illness of our young people. It's driving so much illness in society, this over vaccination. And that's what he's fighting back against. This is a war, right? And it's a war in science. He calls us warring on science, but he's literally using science to commit war against us and our health.
But I have to push back on you. Vaccines do not make us sick. They certainly make us healthier. And they've been making kids healthier and everybody. And we all have the science to thank for the vaccines that are safe and effective, and they're approved by the FDA. Just like the peanuts are approved for human consumption, and nobody ever gets sick from peanuts. We know that. So there's Dan Cohen put together this will drive you crazy. Watch this.
Peter Hotez demands censorship and international action against foreign countries. He has contradicted himself at virtually every turn throughout the COVID era. In the first year, when Trump was still president, Hotez warned about the dangers of rushing vaccines under emergency use authorization.
I don't think EUAs have a place for vaccines.
We've never done an emergency use authorization for a major vaccine released to the public. What does that mean? We know it's a lesser quality review. What's the FDA going to do to ensure public safety?
Well, Hotez may have had political motivations to cast doubt on the coronavirus products. He had good reason to be concerned. In March 2020, Hotez gave congressional testimony to warn about the dangers of coronavirus vaccines.
One of the things that we're not hearing a lot about is the unique potential safety problem of coronavirus vaccine. With certain types of respiratory virus vaccines, you get immunized, and then when you get actually exposed to the virus, you get this kind of paradoxical immune enhancement phenomenon. We started developing coronavirus vaccines, and our colleagues, we noticed in laboratory animals that they started to show some of the same immune pathology that resembled what had happened 50 years earlier. So we said, oh my God, this is going to be problematic.
While Hotez warned against fast-tracking a vaccine, he was appointed by Anthony Fauci to lead an NIH program with pharmaceutical executives, the Gates Foundation, and others that did exactly that. In May 2020, anticipating public concern about what he had admitted was rush testing, potentially unsafe products, and a new platform, Hotez wrote that the communications and missteps around the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines may require a period of damage control, and called for the White House and NIH to shape a well-crafted vaccine communication plan and designate a trusted spokesperson who can articulate and carry the message, an apparent reference to himself.
He's lobbying for a job.
Once the FDA had given emergency use authorization, Hotez reversed his public stance.
So what's your reaction to this approval out of this second vaccine?
No, it's fantastic. The emergency use authorization closely approximates the full approval process, so there's nothing really rushed. Any vaccine released by emergency use authorization by the FDA is an outstanding vaccine. Take whatever vaccine is really offered to you.
Hotez said that once enough people were injected with 2 doses, viral transmission would stop and other measures would no longer be necessary.
News is good. It's saying even after 6 months, it still looks like it's really strong and durable. So this is going to be a long-lasting vaccine. A single dose is not very effective, but 2 doses, fully vaccinated people are. A week or 2 after the second dose, the masks can start to come off. And guess what? You can have everything you've asked for in terms of not requiring social distancing and masks. We can have an extraordinary quality of life. This is time limited. It's not in perpetuity. Well, if this is not in perpetuity, we are going to vaccinate our way out of this epidemic starting in the summer. If enough Americans get vaccinated, we could actually halt virus transmission potentially. If you do the simple math, I did a back of the envelope calculation. Once you get over 65% of the population with a single dose of the vaccine and 50% 2 dose, doses, the amount of transmission will really start to decline. 60 to 70%, 60 to 80% threshold. We need to get to about 75% before we interrupt transmission. Around 3/4 of the U.S. population, roughly 80% of the U.S. population.
2 doses turned to 3.
I think ultimately a third immunization with the mRNA vaccines will probably be needed at some point. We thought there was a pretty high likelihood we might have to give a third immunization down the line anyway at some point, because we had no idea about the durability of any protection of any of these vaccines. So if you got a 2-dose Pfizer Moderna vaccine, think of it as a 3-dose vaccine. We ultimately will need to give a third immunization, and I've been pretty much saying that all along. This was always a 3-dose vaccine, and so this was all predicted and predictable. I've always said this is a 3-dose vaccine. 2 mRNA vaccines were always a 3-dose vaccine. We've known for a while that this was going to be a 3-dose vaccine. The big unknown is what happens to those of us who got 3 doses. I don't have the answer. You need that third immunization to get a 30 to 40-fold rise. After you get that third immunization, you do get a big boost in virus-neutralizing antibodies.
By November 2021, the U.S. population had met what Hotez and the government called fully vaccinated.
Today, we hit 2 important milestones. 80% of adults now have at least their first shot, and 70% of adults are now fully vaccinated.
But the goalposts were shifted, and the booster campaign was just getting started.
And we're going to have to change the definition of fully vaccinated. What counts as full immunization will be 3 doses, just because we gave those first 2 doses so close together. The idea that 2 immunizations constitutes full immunizations is not even close. You need that booster, and you probably need the second booster. If you've gotten a single boost and you're eligible, get your second boost.
The solution here is just continue mass vaccination as aggressively as possible?
That's right.
Are you expecting, as a result, for these vaccines to essentially become a twice yearly thing?
Of course, with mRNA, that may be what's required. You need 2 boosters. You're going to need a third booster. 2 boosts really makes the difference. Get your second boost.
There are these new boosters. They've been available for a little over a week. Who should get them?
Well, anyone who's eligible. Once you're more than out 4 or 5 months from your last booster.
No matter where you're at, maximize out your vaccinations. And even if you've gotten a single booster, you need 2 boosters.
Now's the time to get a booster if you haven't been boosted in a while.
2 to 4 months out, you're going to need a third booster as well, a 5th immunization. Third boosters, meaning 5th immunizations, new bivalent booster. You want to get Paxlovid. That gives you an extra layer of protection as well. You need to get that booster. People need to get their bivalent booster. And
the important message that I have this morning is get your new bivalent booster. If you've not gotten it, you have to get it.
They're talking about the third shot. And is that the bivalent, or is it the 4th booster, or does it matter? Can you help me understand?
So before Elise was asking me that very question, I said, don't worry so much about the number of boosters. Worry about when you got your last booster.
Okay.
Attempting to boost ourselves out of this pandemic is, in my opinion, the immunological equivalent of heroin addiction. Okay, and what I mean by that is that we're trying to get, we're trying to squeeze more and more benefit, but which we're not getting. We're getting less and less benefit for more and more risk of side effects. The more doses, the worse it gets. So this is counterproductive. It's not just it's not working; it's counterproductive.
When Johnson & Johnson's product was pulled after causing blood clots,
the J&J vaccine does cause a rare serious event, cerebral thrombotic event.
Hotez continued to push them.
Well, I don't have concern about the vaccine. It's a good vaccine. It's an excellent vaccine.
After years of blaming the unvaccinated for the virus, demanding censorship, and seeking to criminalize criticism, Hotez casually admitted that the injections, in fact, don't stop transmission.
We are not stopping infection anyway, but no, the booster's actually keeping people out of the hospital.
Son of a bitch. All right, so we'll stop it there. Dr. Kory.
Jimmy, I'm sorry. I was going to ask you to just stop. I can't listen to this anymore.
Just go ahead. Just what would you like to say?
No, that was just it. That is I mean, I can't listen to that. I mean, it's really important, though, jokes aside, what you're showing. I mean, this is literally a spokesperson who's making media rounds on massive communication platforms. And he's spewing lies after lies after lies about something that's going to affect our health. And, at the same time that it's funny because you're literally catching him in brazen lies, it's also really terrifying because a lot of people rely on a guy with him with a little bow tie, with his credentials. They rely on him for advice, and he's selling vaccines that don't work.
The vaccines are safe and effective, and they do work. And
I forgot again. Sorry, Jimmy.
They'll keep you from being seriously ill or hospitalized, and they'll slow the spread and contraction. And I know that as a fact. That's certainly what the FDA says and the WHO. So I just got to push back on you. But I just want to remind people that you have a new book out, and it's called The War on Ivermectin, a medicine that saved millions. and could have ended the pandemic. I always say it saved billions, but maybe I was wrong. But it's been prescribed billions of times. I know that. Dr. Pierre Kory is the author of that book. I just want to encourage everybody to go out and get that book and read it, and follow him on Twitter. And I appreciate you coming on. Anything you'd like to say before we say goodbye?
No, just you want to know the truth about what really happened with ivermectin, and the truth about a lot of what happened in COVID it's in that book. I had a front row seat, and I think it's with my co-writer Jenna McCarthy. It's a really readable, and a lot of people seem to really like the book, and I think it's an important book. Okay, thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Definitely, Jimmy. Thank you. Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Baltimore, San Francisco, Huntington Beach, Rosemont, and Chicago, Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, New York City, Pottstown, Pennsylvania, Stamford, Connecticut, and more, and St. Louis. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all our tickets for all our shows.